Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on a special episode tonight of The Treat Show. We are at episode 45. So I have two of our very biggest, most specialist guests tonight joining us, and Andrew Hatch in the studio as well.
And me.
This is going to be a good one, guys. So I'm going to bring in AJ Sour Diesel right now, and then we have Mitch Maxwell, on as well, joining AJ tonight. Gonna give them a minute. Here we are. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
I am so excited to see you guys, and thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight.
Thanks for having us.
So Mike, how are you feeling over there? Oh, Maxwell, can you hear me okay? Oh, I'm so sorry. I think you're muted on your end. You was smart. You muted. Sorry, Maxwell. I think it's still muted. Oh, let's see. Oh. Are we? Okay, 1 minute. Thank you. He's trying to fix it right now. Thank you so much.
He can fix it.
That's what I'm talking about. It's okay. You know, we always have to have smooth sailing in the start.
Yeah, because that always happens, for sure.
Exactly. I just want to make sure before we get going. Let's see. All right, he's probably just going to give us a call right back. You guys just hanging in there in the chat. I see the chat is bumping. It's so lovely to see Gerhard, Evan, Midwest, Shadow, Michelle.
And thank you, Midwest Outlaw 31. I admire your honesty. Sorry. Couldn't help myself.
All else fails, reconnect.
Perfect.
All right.
Welcome back.
It wouldn't unmute.
Thank you so much. Sometimes it just happens.
Sounds like my ex-wife.
I was like, yeah.
All right. Well, let's get this party started.
Got one of those too.
Well, my condolences and, my congratulations.
Yeah. It's much more congratulations than condolences, man.
I love this. Maxwell, do you have a preference in what I call you?
No.
That's okay.
Most people called me
Maxwell
back
because
in the day. Yeah, like most people called me Maxwell back in the day.
That's
some
the way.
people called me Swell, but in hindsight, it wasn't probably my best anonymity play. But what are you gonna do?
I love that.
Everyone had clever names, and we used your last name.
Yeah, I was like, F, I could just call me my last name. They'll never figure it out.
Right.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry. I'm so sorry. We were just figuring out one last thing. All right. Well, Maxwell, we're going to have to dive deep into this because I know AJ has quite the following, and a lot of people are familiar with AJ and the Sour Diesel. But tonight, AJ has let me know that Maxwell is such an important part of this puzzle and that we need to be the ones to unfold this.
Oh, shit. Now,
well,
see, not that you're on the spot.
I'm one of the important parts of the puzzle.
Yeah.
For sure.
Scott, thank you for doing this because there's so much speculation about the story behind Sour, and I'm excited because we're going to set some things straight, at least here tonight.
Awesome. I've heard a lot of stories on the origin of Sour Diesel, by the way.
That's the trickiest part, I think, about Sour Diesel, and we're not even obviously affiliated in any way, so I can't imagine how both of you guys feel when you probably hear some of these stories and see different people kind of taking parts of claim.
Well,
Well,
the last
yeah,
time,
it's been
go.
funny to see it over the years, and I mean, it's really become one of the most complicated, simple stories there ever has been.
The last time I was on, I talked about being on Grateful Dead tour with a group of guys, some from Albany, some from New York, and Maxwell was one of those people, and so we knew each other basically from going to concerts. From you know, I think the first time we met was in 1992 when Fish was playing at the Capitol Theater. I went up to see them, and then I wound up hanging out with Maxwell and some of his friends, and so that kind of led to us hanging out the following summer on Grateful Dead tour, and around that time, we were all sweating Mike Klopp for as much Chem 91 as we could. And we started getting some bag seeds in the weed we would get from him. And I think that I can't speak for Maxwell, but that's what inspired me to start growing in the first place, was just having like a seed from there that I could plant and maybe get more diesel. So I'll let Maxwell tell his story, but that's basically, that's that's like the beginning of our association. And we lived in the same town at one point in the Catskill Mountains, and so we were, some of the only people we knew up there.
So really
Pretty
fast.
much.
I'm sorry, Maxwell, because I don't want to cut you off. I just don't want to skip over this as well. Are you originally from New York?
Me? No. I'm an East Coast kid, but I landed in New York around 1990. No, 89. Back half of 89. And I went to school there at the SUNY Albany for like one semester. And caught the Dead opening the Nick in the spring of 90, and that pretty much put an end to SUNY really being a path. And probably is kind of where it all started. But yeah, Joe and I met in 92 at Fish.
So you
The
guys
most unlikely of all places for two people
Yeah, I've been to
like him
that
and I
lot,
to
know.
have met, because neither of us really likes Fish.
that is incredible.
Yeah.
Especially not as like crazy Fish fans.
Yeah, you're telling my story to some degree.
I feel. Do you?
That
So
show at the Capitol was really good. I give it that. It was, it was an epic show. But yeah, we're not exactly Fish.
Yeah.
you guys were pretty young though. I imagine like around this time though, like out and about, probably partying. But I imagine the weed scene. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. Is like I imagine it was still pretty slim there, and like I mean, probably very quiet. Still at that time, like where you couldn't be very open about this. Like, how did you guys actually initiate this meeting? Just like I don't know, tripping balls, some flying, like coming over, or how did this actual interaction first take place?
We had a mutual friend named Colin, and Colin lived in New York, or right outside the city, and I knew Colin from Wetlands and going to shows. So I went up to see that show with my friend Colin, and then Colin introduced me to Maxwell and a few other of the guys that became, the Albany crew.
Damn, that is like so cool though.
Yeah, which we never. It's funny, and you see that term thrown around on the internet now, but like nobody ever really called us that to our face, and we certainly did never call us that. We were just the dudes that lived in Albany versus the dudes that lived in the city. I think at one point, Gravy might have decided to start calling us the Albany kids for a while, but it was nothing really official until the interweb got a hold of things.
So how many people were in this Albany crew that you speak of?
Well, I mean, a lot, and I mean, it was my circle of friends, and then it kind of grew from there. And we had some mutual business dealings, and a growing mutual interest in finding as much kind bud as we could. Right? I mean, that's probably one of the things that made this like hodgepodge of people come together and like really become friends, because it was like this constant contest between all of us. I mean, you can only imagine. Picture a
Oh
bunch of
man, I can
dudes in there,
imagine for sure. I mean, I definitely had some
bunch of dudes in there.
similar experiences.
Yeah, it was just a bunch of dudes in their early 20s with lots of expendable cash for reasons you can take a guess of your own, right? And yeah, we were constantly looking for good weed. And you're right, in 92 and early 93, that shit was scarce. Scarce.
I couldn't even
Like
imagine.
it would come along and people would pounce on it. Just absolutely pounce. And once we all kind of got to know Klopp, anytime he had anything ready, he was like, a drop of sugar on the ground in the middle of an anthill. And we were all just like, whoom, and we consumed it all. We literally consumed everything he
And
could
if there was
produce.
one seed in a pound of weed, we would find it.
Well,
Yeah,
lucky you.
That's
yeah.
what I'm talking about. That's a different type
And
of smoker
people would,
right there.
yeah, and we'd keep them, and like at the time we'd be putting them away and like not even like, okay, I'm gonna hang lights tomorrow or anything, but you just put them away because like you had met Klopp and you had seen what's the art of the possible, right? And you're still kind of doing your other thing, but seeing Mike able to do what he was able to do definitely kind of led Vondo and myself down that path when the other hustle became something that stopped working out so well. And
How
that kind of, that was fall of 94.
how old were you, Maxwell? Excuse me, when you first started smoking?
Oh, geez. I don't know, 17. I
Do
was a
you,
late bloomer.
do you remember the first like strain that you smoked, or if there was even strains at that time?
Brick with
Right.
seeds, for sure. It
Yeah.
was brick with seeds
My-
and stems,
It's just did
without
you
a
like
doubt.
it? Did you like? Were you into it like right after you smoked for the first time, or were you kind of like meh? Or what was
Oh
your
no, yeah,
experience?
I was definitely a convert for sure. Um,
I was
but
like,
what we were smoking back then was literally horrible.
oh yeah.
I feel.
Seed good.
Horrible.
No.
Do you remember the first good weed you saw? Is it that guy's?
Oh no,
Okay,
no. We started. No, yeah. I
sorry.
mean, we'd all managed to find things over time, and when we were on, there were, when you're on Dead Tour, there's kind bud to be had, right? I mean, that summer we all went on tour in '93. You know, every afternoon it was meet by somebody's van or meet here or meet there, and everybody whip out their bag and show what they managed to score for the night. It was like I said, a contest,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And in '93, I was 22.
22. That's gotta be the
I was
time of your
and
life.
I was the old bastard. Like these guys are a little bit younger than Joe's, like 2 years younger than me, and I think Vondo is too. So like I was kind of the old dude, but yeah, the old dude at 22.
You guys were this young though, getting into it. I mean, like, did you only go to like one Fish concert, or it sounds like you guys were going to shows?
Oh no, yeah, we'd go to shows because remember, like shows were another avenue for us to find good weed.
Absolutely.
But one thing that we kind of developed a habit of was like we would split up during the day. Everyone would be doing their own thing, but like at night, if we're going to shows, like we would all meet up in one specific place inside of a venue, like every night. So I knew
Yeah,
where these guys would always be. We called it the Phil Zone. It's just
yep.
Yeah.
some people know what that is.
Yeah. I'm just so jealous. I
I'm
wish
just
I-
finding some common ground
Yeah, I'm
here,
just like-
man. People talking about shit I
Yeah.
haven't talked about in like 20 years.
I love that.
Yeah.
I feel
That
like,
was when you checked in to see like, all right, who's got the good weed?
dang. Okay, so
Right. Because there were no cell phones or any of that bullshit. I mean, like you had to figure out ways to meet up with your friends and know where people were going to be at a certain time. Otherwise, you weren't seeing people,
Yeah.
which might mean you did not make it to the next venue.
I was
Depending
trying to
on
explain to
like,
my kids what a fucking pager was, and they just could not get the concept.
The
oh
pager.
yeah,
So how
yeah.
did you guys? Okay, so when you found this good weed, did you see like the same guy at the same shows or like the same people like that had the same good weed, or was it still like luck of the draw, or I hope we see that guy Eddie, or
Well, Vondo, who's also from Albany,
Yep.
I was getting weed from Klopp and like distributing it to these guys because you know I I wouldn't even make money off them. I just wanted to like the credit, like look what I got, look what I found, you know. So so yeah, but eventually Vondo linked up with Klopp and apparently knew his his one of his partners or whatever from another concert that's during some other time. And so soon now Vondo was also feeding off the trough, which completely pissed off me and JJ because we were like, no. Like, first me and JJ fought over it, and then now there was like 3 people eating at the trough.
I love the way
So
you put that, by the way.
yeah, no, because we were literally like very possessive over it.
For real.
so JJ was JJ,
And I was just happy to get it no matter where it came from, but like, because it was good, right? And I had
Gabbing on
money,
that
and it
end,
was
too.
like, yeah, I'll take it, whatever he's got, I'll figure it out. And that's how we rolled then. It was like somebody'd be like, oh, I've got a quarter pound, and you'd just be like, yeah, I'll take it.
damn.
Because you knew 20 minutes later your friends would buy chunks off of you if you didn't want to keep the whole thing. So nobody worried about laying out cash.
That's
And Klopp Klopp was upset with me because I was calling it the Diesel, and then everyone would come up to him when he would smoke weed with them and be like, "Oh, this is the Diesel," and he was furious about that. If you don't stop calling it that, if you don't call it Kev Dog, you can't have it anymore. And I'd be like, "Okay, I promise, I'm not going to call it Diesel anymor."
Damn.
And then
Yeah.
what everyone wanted. So as soon as he was gone, I'd be like, "I got the Diesel," and so yeah, so he was kind of like annoyed with me anyway, and me and JJ like I think stressed him out because we were like just jocking him so hard for it that like he wanted to diversify. So now he was helping out Vondo as well, and so now Vondo's taking it back up to Albany, and I don't remember when you and Vondo moved in together, but I remember the circumstance around.
Yeah, I can tell you. But yeah, I mean, and it's all during this timeline, right? So from like coming back from tour in 93. So I don't know, whenever tour ended in 93, late June, July, who the hell remembers? You can go look it up.
It's a good tour.
From like there all the way through like, call it like September, early October of 1994. Anytime Klopp had Kim, Bonda was grabbing it, Joe was grabbing it, we were all grabbing it. And at some point during that time, I also got to meet Klopp. And he and I also became friends. And we all went, Vondo, Klopp, and I, to see the Dead in Eugene in June of 94. We got, one of those, again, early 20-year-old. Well, Klopp was the real old guy in the bunch at that point, but the rest of us got a hair and we were like, yeah, let's go see the Dead. So we all booked flights and hustled out to Eugene and lived in the back of a U-Haul for a couple days in the parking lot and saw the Dead. Joe, I think you were in Holland.
Of course he was.
And summer in Holland.
Yeah, and like, we were all yucking it up and having a good time. And, sadly, as we all found out kind of shortly after that, and Joe came back from Holland because of it. And we all kind of took a bit of a breather. One of our buddies got killed by some douchebag. So, yeah, that's when we lost Junior. But, things were still going okay that summer.
Can I ask?
I'd say, but
I'm so
yeah.
sorry. Is did he get killed because of something with cannabis or like the exchange of stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
Unfortunately. And that was probably the first thing that really kind of started to sour me on
There was two big
that
wake up calls.
business.
It was Junior's death, and then it was like, you know, the cartel was after people in our circle for, you know, being short of cash, and so shit got real for all of us like really quick. And
Yep.
all of a sudden, living this glamorous life of like selling hundreds of pounds of Mexican weed wasn't so glamorous anymore. You know, people were getting killed, and people were in trouble with people that could easily kill them. And so I think that also we had those seeds. We only sold Mexican weed in the first place so we could have the money to like track down good weed to buy and smoke. You know, like, you know, we made decent money, but we weren't like rich. We were like we were comfortable enough to sit around and do nothing but smoke weed all day. That was really like,
You didn't have your
Oh
Gucci
yeah.
chains.
that was the measure of success. To have money to buy
Yeah.
Sustainability.
and not have to go to work every day. And so
Yeah.
that kind of came crashing down around that time that Maxwell's talking about. And so we all kind of like you know, reorganized our lives after that because, you know, it was a reality check.
Yeah. And it was all of that. That's where Vondo and I moved in together. So
Wow.
that series of events starting in like June of 94 and ending in October of 94 is where Vondo and I got that spot in Schenectady.
That is so
And
sad. I'm
well,
so
yeah,
sorry.
you know, it's definitely messed up, and it was a huge gut check for all of us, you know, and not just my inner circle. It was a gut check for a few different circles.
I think just at that age too, like being that young and when you're dealing with weed, like I've lost friends over stuff like that where it's like 10 pounds or 15 pounds or these like, I don't know, just these circumstances that you never think would come down to that. And I'm just so sorry to hear and send so much love for you guys. I don't know, to you guys for having to go through that and sharing that with us. I'm sorry, Maxwell, you just keep going.
Thanks. Yeah, it was weird, but it shapes us, I guess, and it was definitely one of the moments that clearly played into the sour diesel making her way into the world, right? Because it's all these moments in time. It's me meeting Vondo in like 91, right, and us starting to do our thing. It's me and my first business associate Matt, who was how I knew Colin. That's how Joe and I met, right? And there's all these different moments in time that kind of led up to this point that Vondo and I knew we had to find another way to make an income that would keep us able to continue to smoke weed all the time and sit on the couch. And at this point, it was pretty clear to both of us, at least at that point in our lives, that we did not find day in, day out, 9 to 5 work an acceptable answer to that solution. And having met Klopp, and at this point having been to his place and literally seen with my own eyes, and you know what could be done in one's own domicile even back then.
So
It was like, yes, I'm on this. I want to do this. This is what we're doing.
gross
And
setups. Back then, Maxwell, like what were you seeing? Like were you walking into people's like closets, apartments, like a barn, a shed? Like
All.
like I just yeah, like was there like street lights?
Well, I mean, if we go back further than 92, yeah, there was a closet and a street light that didn't result in much workable cannabis for me. But I think
that
all
94 I had, you know, like the vertically you know, the vertical bulb fucking street light. Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah,
damn near
yeah.
burned my shit down.
Mine still had like the metal housing, and it got hotter than hell.
Yeah.
And of course, it was just crammed in a closet, and you had to leave the closet door open when the light was on. Otherwise, you would have burned the apartment down. But
Yeah, I totally like spliced.
I guess technically that was my first grow.
Yeah, I spliced my my exhaust into the fucking like the dryer, you know, outlet or whatever, just because, in my idiot mind, I was like, yeah, like that'll be fine. Like everybody does the fucking laundry every 30 minutes. You know what I mean? That shit.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That
Exhaust wasn't even a factor in that garden for me.
I can't believe. I wonder this gentleman that was growing. How do you guys pronounce his name one more time? The guy that was leading this, the
Well, I mean, his last name's Klopp.
Klopp, Klopp.
Yeah,
Well,
They
Mike Klopp. I mean,
we called him the Weasel because our friend Dave didn't like him because because Dave tried to sell us shitty weed all the time, and like he'd be like, "Nah, no, we're good. We got a bunch of diesel," and it drove him crazy. So he started calling him Diesel with diesel.
yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
And Klopp wouldn't deal with Dave directly either. He made him like Dave could only get Klopp's weed from Bondo or Joe, and that was just not working for Dave.
Yeah.
That is
So yeah.
bullied everyone around, but Klopp was like too old to bully, and so he hated him. And Klopp would like stick up to him, and he hated Klopp for that. So he called him the Weasel with the diesel. And he was like, "Come on, you know this stuff's as good as the Weasel." So we use nicknames for everybody back then. So his name became the Weasel. You know, your name basically was whatever someone called you more than once.
Yeah, like when I moved out to Denver, like people had names like John and Jim. And like but in the DC area it was like, yeah, there's Fat Chad and fucking, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody had like some sort of fucking adjunct to their name, you know?
And most of them in the New York side of things, most of the names were derogatory.
I was gonna say, it's like me and my girlfriends had this bad like game when we were younger where we would like nickname like all of our regrets basically, and sometimes I don't know. She had a list on the fridge, and I don't know, homeschool, like all kinds of names.
That's some serious transparency
Anyways,
right there. I mean,
let's go back to this. Okay, was JJ really quick? Did you guys? You mentioned that you knew JJ at this time, but was he like a part of your guys' friend squad?
Now, JJ was like part of like the city scene, like from like Central Park and Wetlands. And basically like Albany guys would come down to the city to get weed, to get Mexican weed. And they would often come see me just because I had an apartment in Manhattan and everyone could stop by, hang out, order food, smoke, and see what kind of weed I had, and or maybe try to sell me some weed. So my place was like a meeting point in the city, and so guys like we're talking about Vondo and also Maxwell would come by my apartment all the time because it was just there was always like people there and shit going on.
You guys were the cool kids.
I had like the club in the city. Right?
Yeah, I don't know about the cool kids, but like,
I don't know if we weren't that cool.
You were somewhere in the ranking.
We wasn't really cool back then. We were kind of like, we were dorks that we were so into weed. It was like Dungeons and Dragons back then. It wasn't like the cool people of New York were not like, these guys are cool.
Yeah, the cool people of the DC area were not like Andrew's cool either. So like, I feel you.
Oh, Maxwell, let's go.
Club. You're like, nah, get the fuck out of here.
Right? Yeah, it was like Lord of the Rejects.
Sorry, I enjoyed that more than I should have.
Let's go back to you, Maxwell. When you were telling us about this journey, that sounds like it got pretty dark, and then you're coming out of it with an even tighter group. It looks like, or seems like.
Yeah, we definitely tightened up the circle for sure after all that nonsense went on. But yeah, Vondo and I got a place together in Schenectady in like, it was right after Halloween of '94, because we had originally had planned to go to fish Halloween, but things had gotten really ugly, so we did not, and instead laid low and got this new place, and had a little bit of backlog that had to get dealt with the old business that we were dealing with, but had to kind of keep ourselves off certain parts of that circle's radar because they were being irrational, even though we were taking care of what we needed to. And at the same time, we were fed up with it, right? We were both of us just sick and tired of having to hustle like that, and get hung out to dry when somebody else didn't hold up their end of their deal with somebody else.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what motivated us to go and talk to Klopp and be like, look, man, we need you to take us to your buddy at East Coast Hydro and point out what we should get and send us on our merry way. And there were two motives there. One was we go in Klopp's car, so me and Vondo aren't driving our car to the grow shop, because back then that was a big no. And two, Klopp knew the guy, so it was a cool spot, and we actually got some of the seeds we ended up starting in that first room from the guy that ran the place.
So
The purple kush seeds came from him.
gosh, I can't wait to hear about this, because just like you guys said, like waste, as I'm thinking about, just like how did you get rid of like fan leaves and like waste, and if going to the grocery store was so stressful like that, I can't imagine though, like seriously, how stressful everything else must have been. Like, was it hard like that?
Yeah, it could be if you stayed in the city.
Okay.
Like that kind of stuff for Klopp in Staten Island was a nightmare. And on that first run in Schenectady, it was an absolute nightmare. And we're talking like you're doing things because you have no other option but to pop a hole in the ceiling in your flower room, hook your blower up to it, and exhaust into the shared attic for the apartment building.
Oh.
And remember, we're talking 94, late 94, very beginning of 95. So carbon filters were not a thing.
You're like praying it doesn't smell. You're like, please no.
In 92,
You
I grew
just
my
don't-
first weed on a roof. You know what I mean? Like, so I remember.
That is it. Nobody was expecting you to try and grow weed inside a house or an apartment.
Yeah. So even if they smelled something, they had no idea what it was back then. You hoped. Otherwise, if they knew what it was, then you were going to have major problems with your neighbors. But, the gods, for whatever reason, smiled on us on that run in that apartment. In some ways, in other ways, we harmed a bunch of the plants. So a lot of that harvest was kind of seedy, and didn't really make us any coin. But that did result in kind of, I guess, the next chapter. But really, our goal with that run, when we sat down and looked at what we had some purple kush seeds from East Coast Hydro. Klopp had given us some RFK, which was like some kind of skunk that he even warned us at the time. He's like, these are probably going to harm. And we were like, well, we don't have a shit ton of seeds, man, so we'll take our chances, right? I mean, again, 94, we didn't have the resources to go and bring back seeds from Holland at the time because business had gone sour.
I mean, not
so,
but...
yeah. I mean, people were starting to do it, but it wasn't in the cards then. So we had those two gifts and whatever number of bag seeds that Vondo and I had managed to save in like the year leading up to that, right? So this is like, call it very early November 94. And we hang a couple 1,000 watts, 1 HPS, 1 metal halide. We threw up the Dayton, punched a hole in the ceiling, blew it up into the attic, just like Klopp told us to. It's exactly what he was doing in his apartment. And yeah, we were off to the races. And Klopp told us, hey, take clones. He showed us how to take clones. I mean, the guy did a lot for us. And that's kind of how it was back then. Even though people were trying to do their own things a bit and keeping some things private, we were helping each other out, everybody was friends. Things kind of got sour as things progressed between a lot of people, but it all started with like a bunch of guys that really were friends. Um, and some of us still are.
Well, some is better than none, right?
That's true. And these seeds, so like
Yeah.
that first time that you popped all of these like bag seeds,
Yeah.
like what did you see? Because I feel like that would be honestly really, it's impressive how intimidating it would be as a new grower or something to just roll the dice and be like, what does a male even look like, or what does a hermaphrodite even do? Like,
Oh yeah, I mean
sorry.
it was definitely the novice grow hour for sure, right? I mean, it was us with, a couple different kinds of seeds, a few fluorescent lights for the veg area that was literally duct taped together cardboard boxes that were in Fondo's bedroom, and then the flowering room was what should have been my bedroom, and I slept on a futon behind the couch in the living room. And
Always
like that's
sacrificing.
Oh yeah.
yeah, and like that's where all the magic happened, I guess, if that's what people want to think about.
The
But
futon.
really the number one goal with the seeds from the chem was to find something just as good as the chem. Like when we planted, and I don't remember how many there were. I really don't, but like we're talking less than a dozen, I think.
Okay,
To be
so
honest. I mean, like not a lot. Like Vondo had a few, and I had a few,
so
and we threw them together, and we cloned all that came up, and the one we thought was the most like or better than the chem, Klopp's chem, was the one that happened to be labeled number 2. So that's the one we kept, and we took that plant down to the Catskills in like March of 95 and got our first place and started cranking out. I mean, people called that diesel too, right? Like some of us called it, I just called it number 2. I'm a really simple dude. I didn't like rename shit, but like I also, it was kind of a nice time, right? Like we're talking massive, massive prohibition time, basically, right? So you made good money for doing this. You also didn't have to leave your couch if you didn't want to. And that was a huge check for me, right? So, like,
Sure.
I just let people come by when it was ready. There were like 3 or 4 people that would come by and it would be gone. So it was like, okay, I've got number 2 and I've got Purple Kush. What do you want? Because we kept one of the Purple Kush and we kept the number 2 plant. And that number 2 was, I'd say, every bit as good as Chem 91, as Mike's Chem. I think maybe even a little better.
so the
It was kind of,
chems.
just like any seed from a mom, there's always that little extra, je ne
was
sais
really
quoi, or that oomph, right? It was like Chem 91 on steroids.
That's exactly.
Skunkier, beefier, louder Chem.
So you guys, you would actually know this, and like actually probably have smoked all these. Is the Chem Dog, Chem 91, like Chem 4, like where, I don't know, what's the story? Like when you were trying to seek out this Chem, is like, was it a specific Chem in the Chem
90.
fam?
The 91. Yeah. So Klopp had the 91, and we had a few seeds from his 91, and we wanted to find something just as good or better than that because, A, it's what I wanted to smoke. It's what Bondo wanted to smoke. It's what everybody wanted to smoke. And B, we knew you could make good coin with that caliber of flower. And, as luck would have it, whatever the seeds came from that ended up in our hands from Klopp they were good seeds. Like, all of the stuff we finished in Schenectady was pretty good. It just so happened that this number 2 one was the one we liked the best. And it might have been because it had the fewest seeds. It did have some seeds that run. And we tucked those away. We split them down the middle. and they come up a little bit later. But
And right around that time, I got in the end of March, I got it of 95. I got evicted from my apartment in New York. I got a notice on my door from the 17th precinct basically saying that they were going to come arrest me if I was still living there in 48 hours because my neighbors had all complained about me because like, having all friends over all the time, like I my apartment stunk. I was growing weed with a 1,000-watt light in a closet inside studio apartment in the doorman building. So basically, I got kicked out, and I had to find a place to live fast. And literally, one of the Albany guys was like at my apartment or came over right after. As soon as I opened the door when I woke up one morning, and there was like a letter taped to it, and I was like, "Whoa, what's this?" And yeah, from the cops. So I was like, "Holy shit, I got to move out of here like by tomorrow. Where the hell am I gonna live?" It's like, and it was really hard at that time. There was like a housing shortage, and it was tough to find a place in New York City, especially if you like had no job and no income. And
we did not exist, right?
Like me at the time. So my friend, one of the guys from Albany, was like, "Dude, why don't you just move up to the Catskills where Maxwell and Vondo are living? You could go find a place up there tomorrow. I'll give you a ride." So we drove up there the next day. I went to go see some real estate agent in Hunter, and I knew that area because my dad used to take us on vacation there, like as kids, to like like there was like a kind of like a couple little theme parks up there. And so I went up there the next day and moved into a house 24 hours later. Within 48 hours,
yeah, it wasn't long.
As was prescribed, I was out of that apartment, and now I was living upstate, plants and everything up there. And so now, yeah, that's how I wound up. It was because of these guys that I moved to the Catskills also in 95.
Yeah. And we all kind of had to deal with this realtor guy because Vondo's girlfriend at the time grew up in the Catskills. Like, so her family was up there and she kind of greased the skids before Vondo and I went up on the whole situation with like, Mr. He'll take cash and they're all ski rentals anyway. If you tell him you'll rent for the whole year.
You didn't have to give him your real name. You just had to go up there with
care.
And you have a house. You could do anything in those houses, and nobody would ever find out.
Yeah, because like it was all these crazy rich people that owned all these houses, and they had like dreams of renting them as ski rentals, but like they'd never rent them or ski clubs would rent them for like 3 weeks and trash them. So like Jeff's scam he was the realtor. He'd go to these owners and be like, "Oh, I've got somebody that'll rent it for the year, and they'll pay for the whole year." And these landlords would be like, "Oh my God, that's like 3 times more than we've ever made before. Done." And so like you'd get these great houses for nothing. I mean, it's crazy what we were paying.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Landlord
no.
Came around.
No.
From going from the city
total...
to that, it's got to feel like heaven.
Yeah. My landlord lived in Israel. And so I would just mail his office a money order every month. And I think I met him once after I lived there for 3.5 years, the day I moved out.
Oh my gosh. That's a dream.
So yeah, that was like, and it was Greene County, and that was like the big secret. You could go to Greene County, you could do whatever you wanted, and nobody would bother you. And these were houses with big pieces of property, so that we were surrounded by trees and the woods. And it was the perfect place to go. So and yeah, so thanks to those guys knowing about it, I ended up living there as well.
Yeah. And it was good. It was good for a while. Like it was definitely a great spot. We kind of, it's almost like this desire to, go from just selling weed to growing weed and getting away from all the chaos, right? To be able to do that. Because again, it wasn't really easy or possible to do if you were too close and confined, So we'd find these spots like me and Vondo's first house. The only time there was occasionally neighbors was like a week or two per year when the people on the road would come up and use their houses. Other than that, we were like the only people there on this like dead end street with a private bridge, and we just did our thing. You didn't have, and like as far as getting rid of shit, then once we got to the Catskills, it was easy. You just went out in the woods behind your house and dumped whatever you felt like dumping.
God, that is so nice.
Like
Composting.
we dragged the pots of Pro Mix back there after we harvested and just dumped them out. Like you probably could have seen the place from space after a while because of all the perlite, but there was nobody around. Like it was casual, and that's really kind of what allowed things to blossom for a while. But just like all things, it also got